city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Welcome to Mile High Hockey Lab.
Mile High Hockey Lab.
Hey, how's it going, Colorado Avalanche fans? My name is Adrian Hernandez. I'm here with Ezra, Jackie, and Evan of MileHighHockey.com for the Mile High Hockey Lab, where we talk about the Colorado Avalanche and all things really hockey nowadays, with the Avs not a part of the playoff action. So let's get right into it. If you're here right now, please go smash that subscribe button, that follow, that like, whatever it is on your preferred platform. Don't forget, when we're done with every episode, it is released on Spotify, iTunes, and what's the last one? Audible, I think. Yeah, there's a lot of them. So if you like what you heard here, do you want to double back and see what we were talking about? Maybe elaborate a little more with your friends based on one of our talking points? By all means, head on over to your preferred streaming platform, and you can find us there at the Mile High Hockey Lab. So, over the last few days, we've had some sort of Avs-related news, whether it be, Lonzo Ball's potential not return from his surgery, very similar to Landeskog's, in fact, exactly the same surgery from the same doctor. We also, obviously, will preview a little bit of the Stanley Cup Final between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Cinderella Florida Panthers, I guess. I don't know. We'll talk about that a little bit. And I have a fun thing that I want to do with you all called the Wheel of Free Agents, where I'm going to spin the wheel. I'm kind of stealing this from Altitude. They did it with quarterbacks, though, which is way lame. But we're going to spin the wheel. We're going to land on a couple of free agents, and we're going to talk about whether or not they fit with the Avalanche, what they might make, stuff like that. So,
cool.
Heck yeah. Let's get right into it. Evan, let's start with you. Let's start with you. I saw that you wrote a recent article about Gabe Landeskog, and I'm kind of going out of order from the script, but I figured, what the heck, we might as well get into your article. So we heard from, I guess, Twitter, and I thought that the headline was hilarious. It's like, privately, the Bulls think that Lonzo Ball will not return. How private is it if it's on Twitter? But so tell me what you think. How does that change your outlook on the Landeskog situation, and does it change your confidence level with him returning?
I would say, honestly, it doesn't change much for me personally, because Lonzo, he just had his surgery, I believe, just 2 months ago. And Landeskog is, 3 weeks out from his, if that, if not maybe a little bit longer than that. So Landeskog still has plenty of time to figure out, what's going to happen, right? And there's obviously the differences between the NBA and the NHL. You can call it the flopping league versus the not flopping league, and of course, the NHL players will play through injury all the time, every time. We saw that with Landeskog for the last 2 years, right? So he's going to keep on trying, and he's already said multiple times already that he's not contemplating retirement at all. Right now, obviously, it doesn't help that he talked to Lonzo Ball, who had the exact same injury, had the exact same surgery, and this is the outcome, right? Yeah. So obviously, every single body is different. So you have to just hope that the magic of the Swedish, helps Landeskog in his recovery.
How old is Lonzo Ball in comparison to Gabe Landeskog? Let me see, because
Lonzo's
to me,
younger. I think he's about 25.
I'm gonna say he's got to be younger. Yeah, he's 25, and Landeskog is like 10 days younger than me, so I know his age. He's 30. So that's concerning to me. If a 25-year-old has this surgery, and I know you say like everybody's different, but that's one of the aspects in where everybody's different is that somebody's are 25 years old and somebody's are 30. Somebody's are like Mark Mathot and they're 35. So it's like it's a different situation. Ezra, how about you? I'm sure you saw the Lonzo Ball news as well. Did that kind of strike a chord, or were you more like, whatever?
I mean, it's definitely concerning, but it's also really surprising to me that the team would be like, well, he's had 2 months to recover and it didn't happen yet. I guess he's done. You know what I mean? That seems like a bit of a rush to judgment by Chicago. Maybe that's something that internally they're like, hey, you know what? Let's not be the team that takes the risk on putting him back on the court. Let's move him. Who knows? Who knows what's going on over there? I do think bottom line for me is it's way too soon to know what's really happening with Lonzo, and it's even way more too soon to know what's happening with Gabe. So I'm about where I was before, which is pretty nervous.
Okay, fair enough. And
Yeah.
you know, I think that's a realistic, because it's like he didn't play all of last year. He's not going to play all of this coming year. So it's very reasonable to be concerned. And I imagine there's kind of a plan in place in the event that Landeskog can't actually go at all, even though, like you, I'm with you. I'm thinking that hopefully that's not the case. Jackie, you were I felt like of all the people that I heard talk about the Landeskog situation, you were the one who really early on saw this as being potentially a lot bigger of a story and a lot worse of a situation for Landeskog. In fact, we kind of got a little bit of heat for it, but here we are months later, and you were exactly correct. If Gabe can't go, I have a two-parter for you, Jackie. If Gabe can't go, who's your captain? And then on top of that, if Landeskog can return, would you rather Landeskog return but not be quite the player he was, or just hang him up altogether?
Oh, that's a lot of questions there. Well, thanks for the kudos. I do appreciate that. It's not like that's what I wanted to happen.
No, but you saw it. Yeah.
Because I just want to touch on with that, for me, is it clearly wasn't a matter of will. It was a matter of ability. Mm-hmm. And I think that's still going to be the case moving forward. Just what you all were talking about is I think the team needs to definitely plan for either scenario. And the tough thing is that if they spend the money for next year, and then they have to think about, can they spend it past next year? And I think that's the tricky question. But they need to prepare for it, because they can't just be caught with $7 million not spent again.
Agreed.
But I mean, for me, he's always the captain until he officially retires or steps away or whatever you want to call it. He's going to be the guy with the C. So I don't even know if this era you would see it a different C.
Interesting.
It'd be easy to say. I feel like Mikko has stepped in those shoes a lot. I think Makar could down the line be a captain, but I just feel like this era, this generation, whatever you want to call it, it wouldn't seem right, I don't think.
Okay.
And then what was the other question?
My other question was a would you rather. Would you rather Landeskog come back and be like bottom six, not really the same player, or just call it now?
I think the team would be better off if he made a decision and retired or whatnot, because $7 million, you can't spend $7 million on a heart and soul bottom six, even if it's Landeskog, even if everything that he brings, they just can't afford that kind of luxury. And so as much as I would love to say it's still him, he's still the captain, he'd still be around the guys, not at that price point. If somehow he could retired and came back as a $2 or $3 million player,
now we're talking.
That's not possible. So I just think the team would be better off. You just can't hand out $7 million favors, not with the way that their salary cap's looking. So unfortunately, I do hope that he pretty much has to come back and be a contributor. And I think he knows that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, Ezra, you're on to something when you say we're looking way far ahead with this situation. But I think if we learn anything from Jackie having some insight early on, is that maybe it's best that we plan, that the Avalanche plan for the worst case scenario now. Because like Jackie said, I find it very interesting thinking about not just that $7 million this year, but how it works into a possible contract with somebody else going into the future. Because if you can't guarantee somebody $7 million for 3 years, you can't guarantee somebody $7 million for 3 years. It's just that simple. So I do think it kind of ties the Avalanche up. Maybe not this season, but next season we'll really have to figure out where he sits and what it means for the Colorado Avalanche. Obviously, I sent out a poll, and we'll talk about these polls. I called it my yearbook polls, but I sent one out, and basically it was who's going to retire in the Avalanche. And the choices were McKinnon, Johnson, and Landeskog, and a lot of people wrote in everyone. And I find that hard to believe. Obviously, is that like the dream? Of course, but it's just not usually how this business works. So, and obviously he could come back for a day, but I guess I just mean like, will his last season be with the Avs? Evan, do you think that Landeskog could end up elsewhere, or is this one of those situations where he's going to ride it out with us or call it?
It's hard to say. I would like to think that he would write it out. And he's dedicated his entire career to this team, 10 years already, looking to make it 17 if things work out, right? Exactly. But it's just too hard to say. And you're right that this industry is that that's just not how it works out, right?
Well, it's like it's like Jackie said, if you can't just do favors with $7 million, and the only real way to get that off your books is to trade and have some retained salary.
Yeah, and I was actually thinking about it when Jackie was saying it. If he is done, like this is it, right? And maybe he decides in December, he's like, you know what, it's not going the way I thought it would. And therefore, I'm decided to retire, right? Mm-hmm. What does that contract then look like? Do they have to buy him out for the rest of the? What is it?
I don't think so. If he retires,
5-6 years, no.
Yeah. Okay. If he actually retires, which you wouldn't do it in the middle of the season, right? He still wants his money.
Yeah, it'd be nice of him.
But
right before the trade deadline.
If he actually retires, then the contract goes away. But that's the thing, is that a lot of these guys do not actually retire. They just become LTIR retired, and that would be the thing. Then they would have that contract as LTIR retired, which they could use the $7 million, but they'd also be knowing that they'd be an LTIR for the rest of it, which, if that's the case, is not terrible. You just have to plan for it. Mm-hmm. But then that also means anybody else, like, I think the Byram risk is so overblown, but in that case, there's almost no risk, because if you're LTIRing Landeskog, you can LTIR anybody else.
Yep. Exactly.
So it's just real dollars, but that's tough. Like, they could trade him away to like Arizona or some other dumping ground, but if that is the case, I don't think that would count as him being with another team. Fair enough. At this point, I don't. If he can play in any capacity, he's going to play for this team. Like, nobody's going to trade for him with that money, even retained, for that many years with that kind of risk. And plus, if he can play, like, he's going to play on this team. So I'd almost book that one. Like, Landeskog's not playing for another team.
Okay.
And like I said, I do not count if he goes Robidas Island somewhere else. Like, he's not playing for that team. That doesn't count. Yeah. So you could put that one in stone, I think. But the others, I think it is true. You never know. Like, one last year somewhere else, you just never know what these guys end up doing.
Yep. I would agree with that. And I think I really like, Ezra, that you mentioned that it's like looking too far ahead, because I feel like it's all we have right now is to look way too far ahead. So it's only natural that we did that.
Totally.
Yeah. So
I mean, I fully agree with Jackie there. Yeah. I just meant, like, with Lonzo Ball, it's like, just give the guy a chance to recover before But yeah, sorry, you were about to say something.
No, I like that you said that, because that's kind of what I was getting at, is like, it's just natural to be like, oh my God, fix yourself now. Let's find out now that you're going to be fine in 2 years. But that's not the way this is going to go.
No.
We're going to be pulling our hair out for another 730 days. And we'll see where that lands us when we get there. And speaking of Lonzo Ball and basketball, congratulations to the Denver Nuggets, who will be playing in the NBA Finals in Ball Arena tomorrow, Game 1 against the Miami Heat. We almost could have had a South Beach versus Colorado in both sports, which is crazy. If you think, can you imagine, like, home? You wouldn't have to leave. You would just watch home games for both teams. The whole series, it'd be amazing.
Be great.
Yeah.
One can dream.
Yeah.
Damn it, Seattle.
In another universe. But let's move on to the Stanley Cup Final for hockey. First off, I want to start with you, Ezra. Do you have a prediction, and how surprised are you that the Florida Panthers have made it to the Stanley Cup Final?
Well, I mean, I'll start with the Panthers. I think, I'm very surprised. They were a good team last year. They struggled all year. So obviously to see them make it from barely in the playoffs to the final is a surprise. But after the way they played against Boston, I'm not surprised they beat the other teams.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Like once they beat Boston, it was like, oh, this team's for real, and they really proved it. You get a hot goalie, anything can happen, and that's what's happening with Vegas too. Adrian Hill is playing out of his mind.
Yeah.
So how do you choose between these two? It's like, is Bobrovsky more for real or is Adrian Hill more for real? I don't know. I think they'll both probably keep it up, but then in front of them, who's been playing better defense? I guess Vegas. I don't know. I feel like Vegas's defense is getting a lot of credit in the national media recently. That I'm like, do they have defense in the West? I don't think so.
I don't know.
Do you remember Colorado? Do you remember?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that all the talk about Vegas's defense is overblown. All the talk about Vegas's bottom six is overblown. I've been wrong with literally every prediction. So
good on you for admitting that.
I should pick Vegas just to make it happen for Florida. but I'm going to go Florida. I think it's Florida in 6.
Nice. Evan, what do you got? What's your prediction?
I would say at this point, like, Florida's going to do it. Like, there's no way that they're not, right? They've made it to this point. It's the same mantra that the Avs had last year. We got to this point. Now, why not just do it?
Yeah.
Right? So, Florida's been the underdogs. They still are the underdogs. And, I think Matthew Tkachuk said it best, we're not going to care about what other people think. We're just going to go out there and go do our thing. And that's what they've done. And they beat out Boston. They steamrolled Toronto, which was hilarious. And then steamrolled Carolina. Like they seem unstoppable, and it's ridiculous and it's crazy. Right. Like, I don't know the last time we've seen such an underdog run like in the NHL.
Well, yeah, it'd be one thing if like the wild card team beats the first seed. We're talking a wild card team that snuck in on the last day because Chicago beat Pittsburgh.
I was about to point that out. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then they beat the best 1 seed in the history of hockey, and now they're in the Stanley Cup Final. So yeah, that's a little different. Yeah.
And if that doesn't happen, then Chicago doesn't get Bedard, and like
it's weird.
The whole
right?
conspiracy theories, right? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So with that being said, like Florida seems unstoppable. Vegas is definitely going to give them a run for their money, though. No doubt about that.
For sure.
So I'm predicting that Florida will do it in 7. I think they'll pull it out.
Florida in 6, Florida in 7. Naturally, I don't think anyone on this panel is going to pick the Knights unless Jackie, you're about to throw a wrench in that.
I am.
All right, Jackie, you're fired. No, I'm just kidding.
We'll see who's right. We'll see.
I'm kidding.
That's great.
But no, it's funny you mentioned, Evan. Like, when was the last time an underdog went on a run? And different sport, but I'm pretty sure Adrian knows where I'm headed with this.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Is what happened, and I do think that Florida's more legit than our dear beloved Colorado Rockies, but they were on a run and they had a layoff, and then what happened?
Yes, then they got swept by the Boston Red Sox.
Yes. So no, I don't really want to compare the two teams, but just the way that you set that up, Evan, it just reminded me so much of that. But like, it's true that Florida more than just got hot or got lucky. Like, they did really beat 3 very, very difficult teams. I just think Vegas is more of a complete team. Like, as far as like their defensemen in particular, I don't necessarily think are like the best, but I think they were, I don't know if it was the best, but goals against, like, they were pretty low this year. Like, that's how they're making their goaltenders work, is because they play pretty good team defense. And so I think that they're going to be able to limit Florida. So I think Florida's a little bit more top heavy. Obviously, Tkachuk's playing amazing, and they have, it's basically him, Verhaeghe, Reinhart, and Bennett. That's kind of where it starts to drop off. And Vegas is getting a little bit more production all the way down through. Like, Barbashev, who I wanted to pick up, but now he's not going to be undervalued, has the same amount of points as Stone. So if you're getting Stone-type production from your rental, then like you're doing something good. Yeah. So I just think, it's Vegas's time. It won't be easy. I'd say maybe 5 or 6. I hope it doesn't go 7. Like, we just need to get this over with and move on to the
done
off
with
season.
this season. Yeah.
Especially when there's 3 days between, not in between, but like 1 game per 3 days.
Yeah.
When you get into like games 5, 6, and 7, that's just excruciating. Yeah. Just end it. Like at that point, I'm just begging for something.
It's like a month-long series. Like, holy moly, let's get this thing going. Yeah, I'm with you.
I've always had a little soft spot for Vegas. Like when we played in that division with them, of course, that definitely took a lot of love out.
Yeah.
But like I said,
that's really what did it for me too. Because I'm with you. When they were an expansion team, and on that run, I was like, let's do this. That would be epic. Now I'm like, I hate all of your faces. Do nothing.
Their Twitter account did not help with that either.
Yeah, so. They're definitely the trolliest Twitter account that has ever been on a National Hockey League team, no doubt. One of the things
I don't like Pietrangelo or Braden McNabb personally. Yeah. So like, I mean, I don't know them personally, but like, I don't like them because of the way they're
I know what you mean. Yeah.
So
Ezra saw them on the strip and smacked them both. He was like,
no, biggest one time, and I saw 2 people who I thought might be hockey players.
That's great. And you know what? He hit on an 18, and I've never looked at him the same. Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting. You know, we're Avalanche people, so we talk about the West a lot, but all season long we heard about how dominant the East was, and the East was going to do this and that, and obviously it had a lot to do with Boston being the winningest regular season team in NHL history. But Ezra, do you think that the 8 seed winning the East says more to that being true, that the East is more competitive, or does it say that was kind of a mirage to you?
It's a good question. I wouldn't say it says that it was a mirage, but I don't really know that it really like bolsters their credentials because again, Florida was the President's Trophy winner last year, so
for sure
it's a really strong conference. I don't think that's up for debate. But then I think what happened in the West playoffs tells you that there's a lot more going on in the West than people were giving credit for. It's classic East Coast bias to be like, well, our conference is more competitive because I haven't seen your games, you know. I really think that's what it comes down to. And with Florida, I mean, it's so interesting how everybody was down on them because of the getting rid of Uyghur. They're like, this defense is going to be brutal, but that one move to move him out of the lineup unlocked something in Gustav Forsling and Brandon Montour.
Yep.
It elevates that team and brings them up to the tier of the rest of the Eastern Conference contenders. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the East was really strong, but I just don't think that the West got a fair shake.
I agree with that, and that's kind of like, to me, it's like, well, if your best team in your conference is going to lose to the last team into the playoffs, I think if anything, we just know that it was a competitive, no doubt a competitive conference, but whether or not it was better than the West is you just can't really decide until, I mean, even the Stanley Cup Final doesn't even really determine that because you only play one team from the other conference. So I guess you go ahead.
Both conferences had a top seed lose to a bottom seed in the first round. So
that's a good point. Yeah. Why don't you just smack yourself in the face, Ado, with your own point? Because that happened to the Avs. So you're right. I will say too, though, that I think that I've always thought stylistically the East and the West were kind of different, at least in how they build their teams roster-wise. I always felt like the West had more of a focus on a two-way play, and that the East kind of liked to put the puck in the net, and that's kind of how the teams were made up. You saw that, I think, with Toronto's approach to the deadline. Although they did get a couple of they did get a good defender, it just didn't really shake out for them. And like you said, they got steamrolled by the Panthers, which was highly satisfying for a guy like me. But moving on to the VGK and Dallas series, is there anything you saw in that particular series that you think the Avalanche could potentially exploit in the future? Or what was your major takeaway from that series, Evan?
Make sure Jamie Benn stays in the lineup.
No. Why did they put it back? That was
brutal. Insane. Yeah.
No, I think, I'll be honest, I did not watch much of it. I saw game one and I saw like a replay on Twitter and I was like, ugh. Like, it hurts. I threw it in my mouth. I was like, ugh. No, but I think just like, I know Jackie brought it up earlier, but like Barbashev would have been great. And, you know, if Vegas hadn't made it that far, maybe he was available at maybe a little bit of a better price. But now Stanley Cup Final, he's going to get paid, whether it's with Vegas or without Vegas. It'll be interesting to see. And, I think when you look at like Dallas in particular, because they went down 3-0, they could have made it 3-3 if they didn't lay a goose egg in Game 6.
Yikes.
So, I'd look at maybe some of their UFAs that are interesting. I think I saw Jackie in the Discord that we're in. Who was it? Was it Kiviranta?
Yes.
That was Kiviranta. That was a UFA. So, like
Klingberg too.
Klingberg, yeah. So, like, I could see it as like possibilities maybe for the Avs, but that's really about my biggest takeaway, and that Jamie Benn is still a terrible human being, and that Dallas is better without him. So there you go.
There you go. I agree that he is a human being with terrible technique in falling. So according to him, he was falling, and it was unfortunate that he used his stick on Mark Stone's neck to brace his fall. But Jackie,
I like to think he got an extra game for that story.
I think so too, Jackie. I think so too. I really do. What about you though, Jackie? Do you see Kiviranta as somebody that could slot in with the Avs, and like is Dallas done with this little era, or do you think that they'll keep pushing? I guess they got Ottinger, so
I haven't exactly researched how much he should get. I just saw him on the list of UFAs and was like, that's interesting.
Gotcha. I
don't know why they wouldn't keep him. I mean, that's kind of the thing. If anybody's worth keeping at a reasonable price, why wouldn't they stay with their original team?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we'll see. But I think he's somebody that could. I mean, he shouldn't cost that much. And the Avs are going to need some non-old yet established, halfway decent bottom sixers. But they need a lot of everything. They need to sign about 20 different people. So
yeah, seriously.
It's really hard to say like exactly what the Avs need or what they can slot in at this point, because there's just too many variables at this point. It's like it does not compute right now. But what was the other part of your question? Oh, do I think Dallas is going to keep it going? Probably. Like I think their good pieces are good. Like Robertson obviously is a very talented young player. They got a decent contribution from Wyatt Johnston, which I'm not sure many people were aware of. He's 19 years old and played on that team. So it's just so funny to me when you hear the narrative like, oh, the NHL isn't for development, like contenders can't deal with kids. And it's like, well, the good ones, like you see like
they
Jarvis
contribute.
In Carolina, you see Jarvis, you see Wyatt Johnston's 19 years old playing on Dallas all year. It's like, if you make a commitment to it, you might get something out of some of these kids. So unfortunately for us, I do like their younger core. Hopefully Ottinger isn't too traumatized by this cup run. Well, not hopefully for us, but hopefully for them. So I think they did a good job transitioning from more of like an older team into adding some younger pieces. And I think that's how a franchise sustains without having to really get into a rebuild or a hard reset kind of thing. So I do think that they're going to be a problem for probably at least a couple more years.
Fair enough. And that means Vegas probably will be too. So we're going to have some showdowns in the next few years, I think, with Dallas and Vegas if the Avs are doing the things that they need to do in order to be competitors
Yeah,
again.
it's true. If they want to win the cup again, they probably will have to take one of those two teams out.
And they're not going to give just Bruce Cassidy and Pete DeBoer 1 year, right? No. There's no way.
That too.
Yeah, so they're gonna implement their system. They're gonna do what they need to do.
It's not Vegas.
Yeah, so I mean, it's both of them in their first year with their new team made it to the Western Conference Final. So it's only going to be more positive for them moving forward. So bad for us.
Yeah, bad for us in a sense of there being more competition, but also good for us in the sense that there's already kind of a rivalry with Vegas, and there will always be a rivalry with Dallas based on our history. So it's going to make our jobs a little bit easier for the years to come. So that's pretty cool. For me, the face of the playoffs has been Matthew Tkachuk, and that has a lot to do with his incredibly clutch goals. He's also the king of the celly all of a sudden. Maybe not all of a sudden, but he's got the mouthpiece hanging out like he's Steph Curry, and he does the double knee slide on the winning goal in the Eastern Conference Final. Ezra, I'll give this one to you. How do you think Calgary feels about Tkachuk's postseason success, and what's your major takeaway from his play in the playoffs?
I mean, yeah, if you're a Calgary fan, you have to be upset right now. It's sad because he's a guy who, it's not like the team, didn't want to keep him and you're mad at the front office. It's he wanted out, and
Yep.
you can only be upset about that because that just means you had your guy, and he was like, sorry, I don't like you.
Yeah, exactly.
I know it's more complicated than that. He didn't dislike the Flames fans or anything. He just wanted to be back in the States. But that's hard to stomach if you're a Calgary fan, I'm sure. As far as takeaways from his play, I mean, yeah, he's a great player. I think he is better than I thought he was. I'll give him that. Like, I saw him as like a high caliber top 6 forward, but no, he's an elite forward. And if I ever wrote about him as anything less than that, I was wrong. I don't think I ever did. I never really wrote about him.
Yeah.
But internally, that's what I thought of him, and I was mistaken. So I'm impressed. I'm excited to see him continue to be the face of the league. Really, I think he's been like he had an appearance on NBA on TN.
Yeah.
On the NBA halftime show with Shaq and Kenny and all them, and he wasn't like hilarious or anything. I saw people on Twitter like, "Oh my god, it was amazing." He's like, "All right, okay." He was trying to
slow down. Yeah.
He's fine. But I like that. We don't get a lot of hockey crossover. And I think that's really important for growing the sport. So if he can be a face of the league in a positive way, that's great. I'm glad he's also, Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I was going to say, I think a part of probably why you felt that way about him might be some bias because of the play against the Flames. And he's always been, the rat. And that playoff series, when the Avs swept them, I remember even more so the year that the Avs beat them in as the 8th seed themselves.
Yeah.
I remember thinking like, this guy is so annoying. He would be my favorite player if he played for the Avs because he's such a pest. And I feel like we haven't seen as much of that from him in the postseason as we saw from him in the regular season. Is that a sign of maturity for you, Jackie, or do you think it's just the fact they're playing for the cup, so he has a different understanding?
I haven't really keyed in on him, so I can't tell you exactly what I think of how he's been playing. But I will say that Florida in general just plays dirty, and they don't even try to hide it. Most of the other dirty teams kind of try to hide it a little bit, or think that they're hiding it. Florida just doesn't hide it. They just know that they're going to get called for penalties. They don't care. They're just going to do it anyway. And so maybe he doesn't have to be as rat-like because he has 5 other rats on the ice with him,
I love that. Yeah. I love that.
So I think it is more like a team mentality. And I do want to say when we played Tkachuk in that series, I think he was pretty hurt because we got a little lucky there. But yeah, he is definitely a really good player. So it will be interesting to see Vegas and Florida match up because Vegas is, I think, one of those kind of quietly dirty teams or think that they're going about it quietly. So is it going to be a big clash, or is somebody going to decide hey, we should play hockey and put the puck in the net to win? Or is it going to devolve into total goon sideshows? Yeah. So I could see it go either way.
I wouldn't mind that. That would be more entertaining, especially if it goes 7. Like you said, if it's going to take a month, I hope there's some hands being thrown. I think that's a funny observation that you say Florida's dirty and they don't even try to hide it, because that's pretty much Tkachuk. So maybe he brought that with him. And dirty is subjective, especially in this sport, but I would agree with you that they're a dirty team that doesn't really try to hide it. The last thing I want to talk about in the Stanley Cup Final segment is I looked at the odds, the futures odds today. Let's do it again real quick, just to be totally accurate. I'm looking on BetMGM right now, and as of yesterday, the Avalanche were the odds-on favorite to win next season's Stanley Cup Final. Evan, why might Vegas be incentivizing a bet for the Avalanche to win, and why are so many I guess why are so many bettors betting on the Avs next season?
I'm surprised that's the case. I would have put, maybe Boston over us. I would have put maybe
who's like 2 and
Vegas over us.
3? That might give us a better idea on the thought process. Like who are?
Yeah.
Let's see here.
I mean, when you think about it, we're missing Landeskog for all of next year.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's interesting.
The way I interpret odds, and I think people screw this up a lot, is like they think that there's like people in Vegas like computing. There are people in Vegas computing the odds, but it's not based on who they think it's going to win. It's that and where the bets are going. That's why the line moves. Mm-hmm. So if the Avs are the odds-on favorite, it means that Vegas thinks they're going to win, and it means more people are betting that the Avs are going to win than other teams. I'm trying to find the odds here. So why do you think, for you, Evan, why do you think that might be?
I don't know. I think it's interesting to hear that, I guess. I would like to think that it's because of maybe the monster season that Mikko Rantanen had. And maybe knowing the fact that the Avs were shorthanded a lot this season, right? Mm-hmm. So then thinking about like, okay, they're not going to be without their captain, of course, for next year. But maybe they're going to find a good replacement with some off-season move or something like that. So maybe that's what they're going off of.
Okay, so this one has, as of today, it's moved. Now it's Bruins 1, Avs 2, Leafs 3. What are we doing over here?
Oh, gosh, Vegas, come on now.
Oh, my goodness. So it feels to me like it has a lot to do more with who's betting where, because I bet you there's a bunch of angry Leafs fans who are like, well, next year is going to be the year because Dubas is out, and it's all going to click into, who knows. But then we got Oilers
with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, so it's Bruins, Avalanche, Leafs, Oilers, Devils, Hurricanes, Rangers. Vegas is like Vegas is 8th, and they're in the Stanley Cup Final. So I don't get it.
Where's Florida?
Because like repeat champions are hard to find. So
good point.
And even teams that make it to the Cup Final back to back are hard to find. So
that's a good point.
3 times.
Yeah.
Hint, Tampa Bay.
Avs are favorites again to win the division as well.
That doesn't surprise me.
That's pretty cool. I would say for me, what it has to be is Cale Makar and Nathan MacKinnon. And those guys are enough to, just like when Crosby and Malkin were in doing their thing and Rantanen with McKinnon and Makar. When they were doing their thing, they were odds-on favorite, and they didn't miss the playoffs, if you remember, until last year, basically. So I think that has a lot to do with it, and I hope that that's actually the X factor for the Avalanche to become competitive once again. Let's move on, though, to the segment that I was so excited about all day because I got to make this wheel. And then, just now, I changed the page, but I got it back. All right, we're going to spin this wheel. And it's going to land on a free agent, and we're going to talk about him.
Cool.
Holy cow, that's a lot of names.
It's spinning, baby.
You put in every free agent?
Almost.
That's fun. I like that.
Oh, my God.
What a great one to start
yes.
with. What a wonderful one to start with.
All right. Ryan O'Reilly will be a free agent. He will be an old man still. He will still be kind of a slower skater, but one of the better two-way forwards in the league. Jackie, I'll throw this one your way first. Does he fit? What's he going to make? You tell me.
I think as a player, he would fit decently. And, I mean, we would have to see how much he can keep up or not if he's more of like a 2C or 3C. But I think the problem is going to be money. We know it all too well that he definitely wants to be paid in according to how he views his value, which as a lot of people do. But I feel like if he was going to be reasonable, he would have stayed in St. Louis and they would have made it work. And he wouldn't have basically told Toronto no thanks already because everyone thought, oh, yeah, he's from London. He's going to take nothing to stay here. And it's like, you guys don't know O'Reilly. So,
let me tell you.
I don't know. It really depends how that market materializes for him. If somebody's still going to throw down money for the Conn Smythe winner and this and that. if it was like maybe 5 million times 3, I think that should be the sweet spot for the Avs to try to maybe get an older player, not incredibly old, but just older.
Mm-hmm.
More than that, the Avs just can't do it. Like not for somebody that's probably going to fall off a cliff pretty soon.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think this was the year if they were going to do it, it would have been this year, but it just didn't work out that way. Ezra, what's your thought on Ryan O'Reilly?
I mean, yeah, he probably fits as a player. I'm not even fully sold on him fitting as a player, but I'll say he probably fits as a player. I think, but Jackie nailed it. He's just going to be too expensive. I think if it's me, he is a guy who on the first day of free agency, I'm like, hard no, I'm not gonna mess with this. And then if he's still around after a couple weeks, yeah, maybe his price has come down. The Avs haven't found another fit for that 2C job. He might make sense at that point. But for me, he's not the top of the list.
Fair enough. Evan, if not the Avs, then who do you see Ryan O'Reilly landing with?
Oh,
not the Leafs, not the Avs.
What if he went back to Buffalo?
That would be pretty funny, huh?
I could actually see that, though.
Especially with where Buffalo's headed.
Exactly.
Right,
like Buffalo's going to, like, they're going to be playoff contenders probably next year. They were already this past year. Probably going to make them next year if I had to bet.
Yeah.
And
if Thompson plays the way he did this year.
Yeah, if Thompson plays the way he did, like I could see that being a possibility because I don't think they have much playoff experience like at all on that team, and O'Reilly brings a lot of that, right? Again, though, it's just a matter of price, right?
Agreed.
And so I could see Buffalo. I could see that one.
I think they could pay more than maybe some of the quote unquote contenders.
That's also true.
I like that one. I like that Buffalo.
We all know. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
Okay, I'll go. My hesitation with a fit in Buffalo is that they are full of centers. They've got Tage Thompson, they've got Casey Middlestat, they've got Peyton Krebs, they've got Dylan Cousins. They got a lot of guys who profile as top 6 centers. If O'Reilly is comfortable being a 2 or a 3 for them, sure. But if he's coming in like, hey, I'm going to be your veteran leader 2C, and you're not going to demote me, which I could definitely see him doing, then that's a harder sell for me.
Yeah, well, it's like Jackie said, like money talks with O'Reilly too. So if he's asking for that money, he's asking for that role, and if he's getting that money, they're probably not going to be comfortable with putting him in that bottom 6, even if he's looking like that kind of player. Yeah. All right, well then, you heard it here first. No Ryan O'Reilly in a Colorado Avalanche jersey again. So
I liked Brian's response. It's a simple no.
No, yeah, Brian.
That was a good one, Brian.
You're gonna have to keep the jersey hanging up in the closet, collecting duds.
He was like when he was young, he was my favorite player.
Me too.
Yeah.
He just has so much swag, man. That's what it was. He's marketable. All right, let's spin this thing again. Here we go. I keep putting it in front of the wrong camera.
You gotta get like why am I forgetting what it is? Drum roll, that's it.
Oh my God, this thing's on fire.
Wow.
This thing is on fire.
These are the guys that we planned to talk about.
Do you really have like 30 names on there?
Yes, I'm telling you. And I'm
Ryan O'Reilly and John.
I got Klingberg, Pacioretty, Van Riemsdyk, Tarasenko, Taves, Kane, Killorn, Tatar, Bertuzzi, Dadonov, Orlov, Hornquist, Brad. It goes on and on. So we're not rigged. So Jonathan Drouin. Everybody loves to talk about Jonathan Drouin becoming an Avalanche because he and Nathan MacKinnon combined for a record-breaking season with the Halifax Mooseheads before they were professionals. So everyone thinks that is something that's destined to just click again in the NHL. Ezra, what's your initial thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think for a contract that is similar to Evan Rodriguez, where it's like, we're just giving you a flyer to see if you can boost your value for next season for 1 year. I think he makes a lot of sense. He probably doesn't play with McKinnon if he's here.
Right.
It might work out, but he probably slots in as a third line winger with potential to bump up to the second line. And if he reaches that potential, great. And if he doesn't, and he can be effective defensively while chipping in offense, great.
Even better.
I just don't know how effective he can be defensively. So I'm hesitant to to say he's a guy who's at the top of my board, but I would say I'm very comfortable with taking a chance on him for cheap. I think it's a good value bet, and I want the Avs to make a lot of value bets this offseason. I think adding one expensive piece or adding a bunch of potential rebound guys, I'd probably go for the rebound guys unless that expensive piece is via trade, because there aren't a lot of free agents that are going to be expensive that excite me. So he's on my list of guys that I'm like, yeah, that's worth a flyer. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, because he's got $5.5 million from Montreal. I don't think. What do you think? Does he get?
He should be around 2 or 3.
2 or 3. Yeah, I was gonna say he's not getting 5.5 anymore.
No,
I feel like he's like in the $1 million category. Like,
and bring him on down.
Like to me, I think he's like in the Mulligan tier. Like,
okay.
If you get anything, you're happy and you don't expect much. Like, and at that price point, you can pretty much talk yourself into anybody that's not like Darren Helm, right? So
yeah.
So it is like whatever. I mean, I do hope that they spend wisely and look for maybe some more upside. Like, I do have a few ideas we can get into later if we still have time, but I just like he's already Montreal was actually his second chance.
Yeah,
it seems like this would be his fresh start. He's had years of hand and wrist injuries. He stepped away from the game twice. People don't even remember that he sat out in Tampa because he wouldn't go to the AHL. Then he went to the player assistance program, which I'm not saying that makes a player bad. It just, that was time away from the game and this and that. And I don't think this is just a matter of like a fresh start, bounce back. I think he kind of is what he is. And the other thing, like, is he even still friends with McKinnon? Like, is there any evidence that they hang out, social media? No. So the whole like, oh, bring him in for McKinnon. I mean, maybe who even knows if like Mac's still cool with him? Yeah. Like, bring him in for him. We even
see him take pictures and dinner with Ryan O'Reilly, and no one's left on weirder like terms than Ryan O'Reilly.
And not to say that like he'd be upset, but the whole like, oh, do it for McKinnon, and like you said, there's like no way that they would play with each other. If Drouin is on Mac's wing, then we have like 10 injuries again.
Yeah, exactly. Then we're screwed again.
So, like I said, at the 1 million, 1 year, 1 million, it's hard to have a really strong argument against anybody, other than like, is that the best you can do? But more than that, I think they're paying way too much.
Yeah, Brian, thank you so much for listening and for interacting with us. We really, really appreciate it. Brian Sundown says, why not if we can afford him? And then he went on to say he seems like a playmaker. So I think that is his makeup. It's probably what it reads on his elite prospects page, is that he's a playmaker. But I think
he is because he scored 2 goals. So if you're not putting the puck in the net, what are you? You're a playmaker.
You're a playmaker. Yeah. So that's he also had kind of a run-in with his coaching staff, Martin St. Louis. I remember he had to sit against Tampa earlier in the season because he missed a team meeting or was late to a team meeting or something like that. So that's not necessarily a good look. But I mean, that was kind of the dialogue around Nichushkin. Who knows? That's not going to happen every time you get a guy for $1 million who's had a tough go in the NHL, though. So I don't think that that's something you can really rely on. But Evan, I'll end with you. What do you think? Do you think Jonathan Drouin fits maybe at that cheap mark? And how confident are you that he could turn it around?
Yeah, I mean, he would fit. I mean, as Brian said, I mean, we can afford him. And, it's something I think that would be, a good chance to take on. It's again, like Ezra said, it's like another Evan Rodriguez kind of situation, a prove it deal. I would say, I mean, it worked with Nichushkin. I would say it failed with Rodriguez. Maybe third time's a charm with Drouin, right? So we'll see. Obviously, he would provide a lot of assists. I think he would fit well on that second line. If they decide to maybe move Rantanen down to center and play second line center, he could be feeding Rantanen a whole bunch. If Nichushkin's back, feeding him back as well. So on and so forth. I think he would fit. It'd be hard maybe if he's in the bottom 6, because I feel like Bednar would want like a scorer right? He'd want a depth. He'd want JT Compher of last year.
Yes.
And Druin is not that, right? So
not on the other side of the game, which is
No.
the more important one for that role, I think. Like
Yeah.
JT's, I think why he was so good at 3C was his tenacity on the forecheck. And that is something like, of course, Compher scored clutch goals, but it had a lot to do with his will and not a lot to do with his skill.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think that's like, I don't know if I've seen that at a Druin. I've seen a lot of skill and not as much will. And I think that's tough but honest assessment of his career so far. So I'm with you on that for sure. And just to touch on the Nichushkin thing just for a second, I do want to say that we're probably not going to talk about that until the team does, until we know exactly what's going on, just like you. We're not insiders. We don't have any information that you folks don't have as well. So don't throw anything at us, all right? We're cool.
We probably
I would
won't.
still bet on him being there for Cap. And no,
Same.
And that's probably when we'll hear from him for the first time.
Exactly.
Yeah, pretty much. Or not even
I want to
hear
go
from
back
him,
to
but it'll
something.
be like, he's here. I just
Yeah.
wonder if they're going to completely sweep it under the rug. Like, what do you mean he's here? Well, there's
Yeah.
nothing to talk about.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like,
probably
well,
what's
I guess
gonna
it's true.
Yeah.
If you can
We'll see
pick up
if
where he
the,
left off.
Credentials
They'll probably
media
say
let
like,
that
"Oh, his English isn't good enough to do a press conference." You know, so
But I still do think, to me, the most logical progression from what we know is that he'll be there. But yeah, we'll see.
go ahead, Ezra. Sorry, I feel like you were about to
No,
double
that's
back
okay.
to something.
That's okay. Yeah, Evan, you said that you think Evan Rodriguez was a
I knew you were
failed
gonna mention that.
experiment.
Yeah.
I'm curious why you said that.
I just think because most people would think he would be like another Nichushkin, right? He'd come in and he'd light the world on fire. He kind of did that to start, but then once he got to like December, January, like he just kind of fell off, right? And in the playoffs, he didn't do much either. And so I think that's what Bednar was looking for, right? And he didn't get that out of him.
But he wasn't on reclamation. I mean, to me, like,
Yeah.
the nuke thing was like Yakupov. It was like these former first rounders that they kept bringing in, like Jordan Caron and Marco Dano, and like on and on and on. It was like all these. Well, they had pedigree, and at some point, some organization liked them, so let's see. And it was just like they're all terrible.
I mean, he was 5 points in a 7-game series in the playoffs. That's not bad, and he single-handedly turned the tide with that hit. In game 2, was it?
Yeah, game 2. Yeah.
I feel like for the price point for the $2 million, like he's worth more than $2 million. So like, we almost got lucky in a way. I know, like, people were hoping for more, but what we got for $2 million probably isn't going to happen again. And that's kind of the sad thing.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's really, really poignant because it aligns with what I'm about to say, which is had they gone on another round or two, your opinion of that would be probably different.
Yeah.
It's just that the outcome didn't result in a deep playoff run. So it's like, how can you say it worked? You know what I mean? So I get it. I get what you're saying. But if you look at him and his play and his stats, really, 39 points in 69 games for $2 million, sign me up. 5 points in the playoffs in 7 games, sign me up. That I thought he played. I will say, though, I mentioned after this playoffs that he did seem like he wasn't the strongest on the puck of a lot of the guys. So that I did have an issue with. Yeah, for sure. All right, well, let's spin this thing one last time, and then we'll close it down because I just have too much fun doing it.
Yeah. We gotta get one surprising name.
I like it though.
We should do this in our next episode too.
We will.
Ooh.
Timo Meyer. That's a good one.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is an interesting one because he's the caliber player that could fill the 2C role. He's a caliber player that could bring your depth back to kind of where it was up the middle. But are you going to be able to pay the tab? Who wants it? Jackie, you want it?
Sure.
Okay.
I like Timo. I watched him a lot in junior, so
Nice.
I've enjoyed his game for a while, let's put it that way. But I don't see how he's going to be available. Like, New Jersey traded for him with the intention of
Keeping him.
And so is him on our list because, like, they're going to trade him, or because he's going to be, like, UFA? Because, like, we just flat out don't have anything to trade for him.
Yeah.
You could stack it all up. Lawson, first round picks, like they're not trading him for that. So, I guess
I
you
will
have to
say,
hope
though, it's
that
like-
it doesn't work out.
I was gonna say my concern is in 11 games he had 4 points
He was playing
in the
hurt,
playoffs.
though. He was playing
Yeah.
very hurt.
Was he really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he got.
That's
it
true.
was
Yeah, because he was
horrible.
coming
Got that
back. That's
Nasty
right.
hit, right?
And that nasty
Yeah.
hit. Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, that open ice hit was
from
pretty
Trouba.
gruesome. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
That's
like,
bad
would
one.
he be worth the 8 or 9 million or whatever that he's looking for? I think, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd rather do that than pay $7 million for, someone definitely not as good, not as young. If they could make it work, yeah, he's a guy I'm interested in. But New Jersey's not letting him go, so kind of is
Oh
what
yeah,
it is there.
this is it right here. Brutal hit. I forgot all about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's gonna definitely change the way they feel about his performance in the playoffs. It's gonna be
Yeah.
like, yeah,
I
you
mean-
sucked, but you
Yeah.
almost died on this hit. so
It puts an
we'll give you-
asterisk in it.
It's one of the worst. I hate Jacob Trouba, but sometimes those hits are. You gotta watch them again,
Yeah. What do you
but,
think of the one behind the net on? Oh man, who was it? Oh crap.
You thinking of the Pavelski hit or something?
No, it was behind the net. I think it was somebody for Florida.
Okay. I personally don't like those hits. I think if you touch the chest for a millisecond, it's clean, regardless if
Right.
you drive through the head. To me, I just think that's the most ridiculous interpretation of unavoidable hit.
Yeah,
100%.
Guys
Yeah.
skate with their head naturally forward. That's just the way that they skate. And it's like, hey, your head's there to hit first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
You're
every
bad.
single
I
one of those
think it's
Trouba hits, he
ridiculous.
is launching upwards with his legs. He is
Oh, no doubt. There's
totally
no.
committing to the
Yeah.
head area. It's whether he hits chest first or not, those hits have to be taken out of the game. I can talk about this forever.
Yeah,
But-
I agree too. I think it's a
Insane.
ridiculous
It's insane.
interpretation of the rule.
Yeah. And so, it's just setting up your star players to not be able to perform in the playoffs, a la Timo Meyer. But speaking of his fit in Colorado, I mean, he is like a shot-for-shot remake of Gabe Landeskog. Like,
Mhm.
I would give him a 7x9 and just be like, we'll figure it out if Gabe comes back. Like, I don't care. If he was available, sign me up.
Yeah.
I agree with Jackie. He's not going to be available.
He's a devil, you think, too?
Yeah, he's the devil.
Okay. Evan, what about you? You think he's a devil?
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, I agree. I was about to say the exact same thing that Ezra said. He would be a great replacement for Gabriel Landeskog. Huge provider. I mean, the Avs, were linked to him during the trade deadline. There were talks about it, but of course, there's nothing available, right?
Yeah,
So
what are they going to trade for?
Exactly, right? There's nothing. So you'd have to. He's going to have to hit the market to even be considered to be an Av.
Right.
And there's going to be a lot of teams that would be wanting his signature, right?
Mhm.
While if he somehow does hit the market, Colorado is probably, I would think, more towards the top of that list, just in terms of competitivity. That's not a word, but
Could be.
Making that
competitiveness.
shirt, right, baby? Wow, Hockey Lab competitivity, baby.
In terms of competitiveness and a chance to win a cup, the Avs do provide that, right?
Agreed.
The Devils aren't quite there yet. Maybe they will be by next year. Who knows, right? So, but yeah, I think he's going to be a Devil. The Devils gave up too much for him.
To not bring him back. Agreed, yeah. And they got the room, so got to do it.
Exactly.
One guy I want to talk about, and then we'll end with whatever you folks want to chime in on. Joe Pavelski. How does that situation work out in Dallas? Does he come back again?
Is he
I
up?
think he has another year.
Does he have one more year? I thought it was a 1-year contract.
Oh, no,
Even then,
think
I would give him another year.
I think he's going to be a guy that just takes 1-year deals as long as he feels like it. Like,
Oh,
I
no,
think
maybe
he's
that
just
was
going to
his-
be in that situation.
Yeah, he's got a
Where-
1-year, $3.5 million contract that expires this season.
Oh, really?
Okay.
I think he'll renew it.
Yeah. I think at this point, like with his age and stuff, that he's just going to be a guy that will get short contracts as long as he feels like continuing.
They gave him a $2 million. I was wrong. His AAV is 5.5. They gave him a $2 million bonus.
Which is smart for guys at
Oh,
that
this was a
age.
performance bonus too.
Yeah,
Wow.
probably for games played, which for the
Mhm.
over 35 group, you can put in those games played bonuses, which is nice for both parties.
I think the reason I bring him up is I feel like when we talk about a carbon copy of Gabe Landeskog, in terms of positional play in front of the net, I think Landeskog stole a lot of shit from Pavelski. So I feel like that would work.
Oh, it's
too.
amazing what Pavelski can still do at his age. Like, sure, I would take him, especially on a short contract. Yeah, I mean, he's kind of like defying father time. Just ride it as long as you want. It was like when Joe Thornton was still good for all those years. It just sometimes guys get lucky and teams get lucky with players like that.
It would be weird to see him in an Avs jersey. I won't lie. But I would take it
because he doesn't have us to score against.
We'd never have to worry about that again.
No, but I would totally take it too. Like,
exactly.
I mean that net front presence would be huge, right? They have missed that a lot.
He's just really good at tipping pucks in. Like is namely what I point towards, and I think Landeskog stole a lot of that technique smartly.
Hey, that's fine.
Yeah, he's got a bigger frame. Yeah,
and with Landeskog still kind of within the team, I would assume so anyway. That he'll be training and wanting to be involved. If Pavelski does come in, the two would probably bounce ideas off each other if I had to guess. So why not, right? I would take that. But obviously the ball's in Dallas's court there.
We'll find out.
We'll see.
Well, is there anything the three of you want to touch on before we call it a day?
I'll just throw two names out there, especially since I'm like the I hate it all free agents person. Of the names you mentioned, you said that he was on the wheel is Tarasenko. I know I've talked about him before, but he's kind of fits into that $5 million for 3 year kind of category. I think I saw him projected as that, so it's not just me like hopes and wishes. But if they could get Tarasenko on a contract like that, I think that would be great for the Avs. Like, they need some scoring talent. And I know some people would say, but he's not a center. I don't care that much. Yeah. Like, I get that somebody has to play center, but I just want good players. And I want good players that are good fits and that don't cost $1 million. So if it's him versus the exact same quality player that's a center, okay, maybe they do need a center. But I just don't fixate on it. Like, I just want good players to play on this team. And the way that Bednar, he plays very much a 5-man unit, and hockey's going that way anyway. It's just like, you know how Landeskog was like a center on whatever line he played on, and Mikko can kind of do that. It just doesn't matter to me. Like, we're not at the point where we can be picky. We just need better players.
Yeah.
Another interesting name I saw that you guys can chime in on. I saw in an article, I think it was from Frank, I don't know how to say his last name, so I'm not going to try. But Saravalli, I guess, buyout candidates. And on there was Anthony Mantha. And I thought, that's kind of interesting. He only has 1 year left. I think it was 5 point something. And even discussed that Washington might be willing to trade something with him in order for them to not have to do the buyout. And to me, that sounds like what the Avs should be all in on, is A, getting an asset, and B, getting somebody that has scored in the past, has been a good player. 1 year deal. If he sucks, oh well. And
he's 28. And
then you have an asset if he doesn't work out. Like, that's the kind of deals that they should be in on, is for them to benefit in both directions like that. So,
he's was he a Red Wing too?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And,
I mean, I love that, Jackie. That's a great idea. I feel like if the Avs can play the Carolina game from last offseason and kind of weaponize their cap space, take on, like Carolina did with Pacioretty for free from Vegas, make themselves an option for teams that are trying to get rid of contracts. Obviously, the players have to be contributors. It's not like Arizona. But yeah, Mantha, I don't know. He didn't manage to work out in Washington with pretty good centers. So it gives me a little pause when the Avs need to fill out that middle of the lineup still, and bringing in a winger who doesn't seem like he can elevate to center. That's a little bit concerning, but at the same time, bringing in an asset with him, it seems like a worthy gamble.
Yeah. And I feel like at worst he's Erod. So and he's going to get paid a little bit more, but like there's
if
upside
Washington will
too.
retain too, then ooh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would like that. Yeah.
He had his best year was a 48-point season in 67 games in 2018-19, which featured 25 goals in 67 games played. That's not bad.
No,
We
not
could
at
use
all.
another 25 goals. I mean, obviously he'd have to
Yeah.
get back to that, but
Well, and he's a guy who plays that net front game too.
Mhm.
He's a big guy. He's definitely a power forward, but he doesn't play with like the nasty edge that I feel like I don't like in a power forward. I like a power forward like Gabe, where it's like, yeah, maybe they cross the line every once in a while, but that's not their game. Their game is playing smart, playing heavy, and I think that is Mantha. He's just not that good at it, but like he's pretty good at it.
Yeah,
so
decent enough.
To me, that's a solid middle six forward. That
I like that
is
too.
maybe getting paid a little too much, but
We'll circle that on the buyouts for
Good
sure.
idea.
Jackie, a good call.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna lose my mind when we're sitting here in like February. And everyone's like, trade for Mantha as a rental, and I'm just gonna like I'm gonna be out. I'm gonna be like, I'm done.
That's great. Well, I think that'll do it for us today on the Mile High Hockey Lab. Thank you, Evan, Ezra, and Jackie for joining me today. Everything was awesome. I really appreciate you folks.
Thank you.
Of course.
So if you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to like, subscribe, and share with your fellow Avalanche fans. Heck, just share it with hockey fans because we'll probably make them Avalanche fans in one episode, or not. So they'll have a team one way or another if they watch one time. Be sure to head on over to milehighhockey.com for all of our articles on the Colorado Avalanche, many of which have been written by these three fine folks. And be sure to head to Twitter and follow us there at MHH_lab and the website itself at Mile High Hockey. So I'm excited for the Stanley Cup Final. Hope the rest of you folks are. Congratulations to the Denver Nuggets. Hopefully they can put another championship banner up in Ball Arena. And that'll do it for us today. Signing off, Adrian Hernandez from the Mile High Hockey Lab. You all have a wonderful night.
Welcome to Mile High Hockey Lab.
Mile High Hockey Lab.